The Choose Love movement offers no-cost solutions that keep our kids safe, providing them with the skills and tools they need to flourish. Join us in our mission to create the world we want to live in, one that's connected and compassionate. Check us out at chooselovemovement.org. Together, we can choose love.
Hey, Choose Love audience. My name is Scarlett Lewis, and I am the founder of the Choose Love movement. Thank you so much for joining us on this podcast. This is just such a very special audience because you are coming to us literally because you want to be part of a group that is co-creating, I would say, the world that we want to live in, one that is safe, safer, peaceful, and kind. And today we have an incredible guest who is now a member of Choose Love. She is our Florida ambassador. We're so lucky to have her. She is the kind of person that you meet for the first time and you feel like you've met her, or you've known her your entire life. She is just like a soul sister now to me. Her name is Pam Kissoondyal, and she's so talented. She has such an incredible story, and she does so much and adds so much value to so many. And I'm just so happy to have you here, Pam. Thanks for joining us.
Of course, I'm happy to be here with you, Scarlett.
So, I'd love for you to kind of introduce yourself, because I think that's the best way of introducing you to the audience. So just talk a little bit about what you do today and how you were introduced to Choose Love, what attracted you also to Choose Love and made you want to become an ambassador. And then maybe we'll take a little step back and talk about your why.
Okay, all right, sure. Well, what do I do? I'm glad you asked it that way because they said, "Who are you? Tell us about you." And I'm like, I have no idea where to start, but what
We'll
do I
backtrack
do?
into who you are.
I work full time for a federal funded program at University of Florida. Well, two programs. One serve individuals who are deaf and blind in the state of Florida and the Virgin Islands, and also I work part time at the Center for Autism and Related Disability. I do have a side gig. I am a life coach and I do presentations, workshops, trainings for facilitators, ambassador for Choose Love. I am on several nonprofits, helping individuals to kind of find place in grounding themselves to work with individuals. It's always been a passion, and I am really glad to be in places, not just in Florida, but nationally and internationally, to try to keep the momentum of how do we help ourselves to be better people so we can do better.
Wow. That's a lot. So helping ourselves be better people so that we can do better. You're trained to do that because you're a certified coach. I think you're also certified Jack Canfield
Yes.
coach.
Yes.
And
certified with Jack Canfield Success Principles. I'm certified as a life coach 2 times in 2 different places because one wasn't enough. And I also am an elite trainer for True Colors with True Colors International, the personality type assessment process. Absolutely fantastic. So I have done that as well, and I do trainings in that. So just all around, I love teaching. I wanted to be an early childhood educator, and then I got children, and then that went out the window.
But I became one anyway, but just not in this setting, right?
Yes, but all in all, I think I always strive to be that better person for my children in whatever way I can. So and that's what kind of drew me to Choose Love as well. I was introduced to Choose Love by our friend Joanne, and as they have in New Mexico the program at the school, and she gifted me your book, and I started to follow all of the things you were doing, and then finally we met. When we're supposed to meet last year, but here we go. This year we met.
Yeah. So Joanne Mitchell is the principal of MAS charter schools in New Mexico. she is actually one of the first schools to ever choose love, one of 4 in that first year. So she's a very courageous leader. They continue to choose love and really prioritize it. Now they are one of the first certified schools in the country, in the world, actually. And so Pam and I met when I was down there kicking off the program once again in for both of her charter schools. She's expanded exponentially since the first time I was down there about 8 years ago. So she's grown to have another school, and she's one of the top performing schools in the state, which is not surprising.
No.
And so Pam, you're on her board of directors, and so she's so excited for us to meet because she said she loves us both, and as I do, I love connecting people that I love. And of course, we hit it off right away, which is
Right
so
away.
great. And I just thought, wow, I want to work with you. I want our audience to hear about what you do because it's so fascinating and so incredibly needed in our world. And so we'll get into that in more specifics, but tell us about why. I mean, you do so much. You're obviously an overachiever, and I mean, 2 coaching certificates. Uh, so what is your why?
My why has 2 parts, I think. One is finding me a better me all the time. And I feel like the better I get, the better I can do, the better I can serve.
I
And
get that.
it's always been my number one is my kids. I think I want to set an example for them. I don't know how well I do, but it's my goal. And I think the better person I become, the better I am to be, there for them in all facets of their life and in all domains and regardless of what is happening in their life. And I think my children are extremely different. You know, I have a son who's 28 and my daughter is 26. And my daughter, who's 26 years old, also named Jessie,
Mm-hmm.
is has a diagnosis of autism. And she's got a really long list of diagnoses, really, but her primary disability is autism. And I think she is one of the best teachers I have had in my life. So much so that I feel like I'm trying to keep up with her in a way because she's unique, she's fun, fantastic, funny. She has challenges, absolutely. She's nonverbal, but she is so uniquely amazing. I mean, everybody's children are amazing, but Jess has her own way of doing, saying, being there for us. That sometimes I would just sit back and think how amazing she is that without a word or an ask of what I want, she definitely demands what she wants when she's ready, but it's not a constant, give me this, give me that, give me that, or, she's and what I love most about Jess, which I want to adapt in my life at some point, is being true to your authentic self. Like I feel like I'm working on that and I'm getting there. But I have habits that I still need to mold and shape into what I want. But with Jessie, she is very contemplative. She knows what she wants and she never stops thinking about it. She always gets it. She always gets it.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so many things in her life that I can give you examples of, but I love that about her. She's true to her. She loves being Jessie. She loves being Jessie. And I love that of her. Sometimes it does drive me crazy, but I love it of her.
Yeah, well, your greatest challenge is your greatest teacher. And from what I know and what you've shared with me about your son Alec, um, because of his upbringing and also because of his sister, he is such an incredible, compassionate, just deep thinker who is also into service, and he's just an amazing person at 28 years old.
Yes, yes, he is. I feel like if I were Alec when I was 28, my life would be very different now. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the future brings for him. He's, chill person, passionate about what he's passionate about, which is writing. And he's just a very good soul all around. Yes. An amazing, exceptional big brother, to say the least.
It's interesting because JT, my son, who's 24, obviously been through a lot of trauma in his life. The last of which was his little brother being murdered, but definitely not the first. And I see how those struggles have shaped and molded him into such an interesting, unique, strong, creative, compassionate individual.
Mhm.
And it's what we teach in Choose Love, which is that you become beautiful from the inside out because of your struggles, not
Absolutely.
despite them. And that is
Absolutely.
such a strong message and necessary, I say especially today, but always, that we are designed as human beings to learn and grow from difficulty in life and not
Absolutely.
fear it and resist and avoid it. And so that's definitely what I think both you and I have in common as well. We constantly are trying to better ourselves. If I lay my head down on the pillow at night and I have learned something and grown in some way, then I've had a good day. And plus the fact we also want to be part of the solution. And I didn't wake up to that until my son was murdered. And then I realized, wait a minute, I send my child to school and I'm responsible for their safety, health, and well-being, even while they're there. And so that means that I have to do something. There's nobody else that's going to come in and do it. And that's why I think, Pam, the things that you have developed, the workshops that you gave, the knowledge that you have through your own struggles, through your own challenges in your life with your own kids, have led you to this place where you can help navigate others through that too. It's like vicarious post-traumatic growth, which is allowing others to benefit from the hard fought lessons that you have learned through your own struggles, so that other people don't have to struggle as much. They can learn from you, and it's just invaluable.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think what you said is so amazing because learning in the process of hardship, it's it's a harder thing to do than one can ever imagine, especially when it comes to our children. I say all the time I could support a family 100% in an IEP meeting, for example, and I feel 100% prepared for an IEP for my own child. But in the presence of others, and it's like my emotion sits on that table, and I become a different person that I walked in there and expected to be. And in my career, or Jesse's school career, I have learned from really, really, really bad mistakes. I mean, I have stories where I feel sorry for the teachers who worked with me at the time. I really, really do. And I've, I'm glad those experiences were part of my life because they actually changed how I teach, what I teach, how I approach my life, how I think about Jesse in the process, instead of going in there and saying, this is what Jesse needs, is thinking about, is that really my need or is it really Jesse's needs? Really being
Interesting.
conscious in that. And I think, choosing love is such a powerful message. And I think when Jessie was in utero, 12 weeks in utero, we found out about her first diagnosis. So life changed in that moment, And I had a choice. to keep her here or not. And I chose to keep her. And I think of that every time it's a difficult, very difficult moment in our life. And did I choose this for you, or did you choose this for you? Or did I made the right choice or not? And I play with that in my head. But I get out of that place very quickly because I see her, I see what she brings, I see the numerous people who have benefited from her being here. Jessie, I was joking, says she's an employer from the day she was born. And there are many college students who had a part-time job with Jessie, that has carried them through, and the experiences they've had with her. It's lifelong learning with Jessie. So I think that being conscious in why we do what we do as parents, especially of children with special needs, choosing to be there for our children is one thing. Choosing to love them regardless of how they show up is a very different thing. And then choosing to be okay with us in that process, but not be okay with us and thinking that we are doing great because everything is absolutely perfect right this moment. Things change so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So abruptly, and sometimes in ways that we cannot even expect. And if we're not prepared and building ourselves and our capacity and capabilities and learning, what courage takes and how to be grateful and to forgive and to, be compassionate. But compassion and action is so important, being so aware of all of that. I have in my wallet that I take everywhere with me. It's a little prayer that I learned at a AA meeting that I was attending with my nephew at one time. And it's a serenity prayer.
Mm-hmm.
And I go back to that every single time. And it's just one of those grounding things. And then after I learned about Choose Love, it was like, okay, how can I be courageous in this moment? What do I need to be grateful for in this moment? Who do I need to forgive? What do I need to forgive? And I have to tell you, Scarlett, most of the times, the forgiveness was to my own self.
Mm.
I had to forgive me so many times because I was being so hard on myself. And I think that is one of the things that parents, teachers, anyone out there, if you learn how to really be kind to yourself, I'm not saying it's easy, but it can be learned,
Well, I want to read the serenity prayer because I love it too. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Living one day at a time, enjoying one moment at a time, accepting hardship as a pathway to peace, taking as Jesus did this sinful world as it is, not as I would have it. This is a version of it that came up when I looked it up. Trusting that you will make all things right if I surrender to your will, so that I may be reasonably happy in this life and supremely happy with you forever in the next. But just, basically having the wisdom to know what you have control over and what you don't, and letting go of the things that you don't have any control over. And that's really important. I want to go back to something that you were talking about, the IEPs with the school, and how you felt as a parent walking into the meetings to discuss those. And, I went through that same process, and it was not a comfortable process. I was way out of my element. You're defensive for your child, and maybe because I was defensive, the school was defensive as well. And it seemed like a fight, honestly. It seemed like a tug of war. I could picture them with their heels dug in on one end of the rope saying, we're not going to give you these services that my child had tested for and needed. And then it was me on the other end of the rope saying, oh, yes, you are, because he needs them. And it's your job. This is why he's here, and he needs them, and why wouldn't you? And all this, and the tug of war and the anger and the sadness and the guilt and all of these emotions that came because of it. I get that because I experienced it. And I might add that so did Adam Lanza, who was the young man that came back to the elementary school, Sandy Hook, that he attended and perpetrated that awful crime. His mom went through the exact same scenario that I did, which is how I came to find compassion for her, because I knew the struggle that she faced. I faced it with, in the exact same school with the exact same people. So, that's one of the things that you have made yourself be an expert with. And you offer workshops on this topic. And I think when I said invaluable in the beginning, your knowledge and what you offer, this is part of what I was talking about. Can you talk a little bit about that and describe what the workshops are and how they benefit parents?
I will, but let me tell you how that came about first, because I actually didn't remember until as you were talking. So Jess was, I think, about 8 years old, and she was in third grade, I imagine, at that time. And I knew that I needed to change, because I have to confess that I am a recovered aggressive advocate, which somebody had to point out to me. I did not realize I was aggressive. I thought I was doing the right thing in the right way to advocate for my child.
Yeah.
And I think we all learn how to do that from the people who have done it before, because you know, they say squeaky wheel always gets the grease, or however that goes.
Yeah.
That is, it's how we have learned to do that. And Jessie, my Jessie, has opened my view to look at that differently. And so she came home from school one night, and she settled in, and before she went to sleep, Jessie does not cry, so it's been years since she's cried. And so that particular night, she just cried from this place of everything, pain, passion, and sorrow, and you cannot even identify, but it was the most haunting cry I have ever heard. And to hear her cry, and that I'm crying because I have no idea what to do because she's crying. I couldn't sleep that night, Scarlett. I could not sleep because I just could hear her cry, right? And I remember just pacing when she went to sleep. I was just pacing that and just trying to figure out what to do. How could I help her? Like, what is going on? And I went to different places in my head, it's school, it's this, it's that, like I'm not doing enough. And eventually I said, what do I need to do in my lifetime? If I could do anything, the one thing I would want to do is to make sure that she doesn't cry before she sleeps. No human being should ever cry like that before going to bed. And so I think that was so. And then I started thinking, okay, well, then what do I need to do? How do I need to show up for Jessie to make sure that that doesn't happen? And so it was a very conscious decision that I will make sure that when I am not with Jessie, that if anybody had anything to say about me when I am not there, when she can hear it, because she hears really well and she remembers what she hears, is that I am doing my best for her. And so I had to become that person. I had to change my advocacy output at that time, the way I knew how and what I did. I had to change it for the benefit of what I wanted for Jeff, So
you know why she was crying?
I still don't. I think it was just so much inside that she just needed to let go. But it was something that I knew I didn't want to ever hear again. It was just too painful. So I showed up the next day at school, Scarlett, and I know I showed up as a different person. I knew consciously that I showed up as a different person. And the way I, when I took her to school, the way I spoke with the teacher, the way I left, the way I said goodbye, the way I moved, and I knew they recognized it too, because that was very different for me, because I'm like, these are the things in the backpack. There's a communication from last night. This is what I need. I was like a military mom, really.
Yeah.
So I think that was the pivotal point that shift how I learned how I knew I needed to learn how to advocate differently. So I teach
Sounds like maybe a little bit more collaborative type of feeling came over you, and maybe some more humbleness, like we're all in this together and I need help too, and wanting to be on the same page. That collaboration piece, there's this sense of control that we want to have as parents. And I think when something like that happens, we realize the control piece is maybe a false sense of control, and really the control is in the collaboration and the relationship and the connection with the other caregivers.
Absolutely. So I think for me at the time, it was very selfish. I have to say, it started out being very selfish, because it was all about me, that Jesse has to see me as a different person, and I need to grow up and step up to being that model. And in that process, then I felt guilty for it's all being about me. And then it got to the place of, all right, so it's not just about me, this is about Jess, and it is about me, but how about everybody else? So it was a really interesting path for.
And you know what else it was? It was just seeing you with her teachers showing up in a different way that might have helped, like maybe a little bit more vulnerable.
Yes.
And it may have helped Jess in her own vulnerability and her trust of those teachers, seeing you treat them in a different way.
I absolutely believe that. And I think the vulnerable part was essential. Because as I went to school for just any meeting, it was being, I am afraid of this. I am concerned that if this is not in place, this is what would happen. Just being very truthful about what my concern is projecting in my head. So paint me a different picture. Let's create a different vision so we can help Jesse to get there. Became more of a style that I adapted, but it wasn't where I started. I know what my vision was for Jesse, and we're all going to work to get there. And the school, they tried, but I had so many big dreams for Jesse that it was also putting her in a very difficult place, because everybody's trying to understand Jesse, but they're trying to please me. And that's the shift had to happen. But so that is how I started to doing collaborative workshops on how to become an effective advocate, how to become a collaborative advocate, how to just hold your ground to be better at what you're doing. What do you need to learn? What do you need to know? Who do you need to be? How do you show up? It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to speak your truth. It's okay to have your true colors show in an IEP, because you are your unique self in that place representing your child. I also learned that it was very important to take Jesse to IEP meetings, because it really pulled a team to speak about Jesse when she's there differently. It was very difficult for me to do that right then, when I knew that was important, because I still hadn't worked out all my struggles. So I was avoiding Jesse going to an IEP, because I knew what my goal was for Jesse. The way I show up, I was still working on that. So that was conflicting too, because school wanted her to be there, because they knew that probably will ground me a little bit better. But I also knew that I wasn't ready for that. So there are so many things that, are right and wrong, or good or bad, or however we want to look at it. But I think
that's interesting. Having the child there grounds the meeting around the needs of the child.
Yes, if somebody is there, you speak of them very differently.
Yeah, interesting.
Not. Yeah, you have to address them, like, instead of saying, does Jesse wants to have lunch at 11 o'clock? I don't know. Ask Jesse. She's right there.
Right.
Giving her, so it was actually it is required for schools to include children in IEP meetings, regardless of their level of functionality, because it includes them and involve them, and that's how you build self-advocacy skills, right? And it's also important I think, we have to always assume competence. And our children understand way more than they get credit for, regardless of their diagnoses or where they are. Jessie is nonverbal, but she understands everything. And when you think she doesn't listen, that's probably when she listens the most. So I think, those are pieces that when we become more aware of what we want, we're able to add those pieces and make them more productive for us in the future.
Hi, my name is Scarlett Lewis. I'm the founder of the Choose Love movement. I founded this organization following the murder of my 6-year-old son, Jesse, and 27 others at Sandy Hook Elementary School. I realized then that we must come together in order to solve the escalating issues of violence, substance abuse, and mental illness in our country and world. I created the Choose Love movement because, as humans, we are 99.9% genetically the same. We all need love, and we all also feel pain. We teach all ages how to choose love and grow through pain. It's pretty simple. Love feels good, and anger, hatred, and resentment feel bad. Hurt people hurt people. Even though we can't always choose what happens to us, we can always choose how we respond. Love is always the strongest response. 6-year-old Jesse stood up to the shooter and saved 9 of his classmates' lives before losing his own. We all have the capacity for that courage. Join the Choose Love movement today and be part of the solution by creating a safer, more peaceful, and loving world.
So
Thank you.
That's something that you've dedicated your life to, which is helping parents advocate for their kids. So you provide workshops based on what you've learned as a coach, what you've learned as a parent. You said something to me earlier that when you were advocating that, basically you thought that the school did the best that they could with what they had, but in your mind, you wanted more.
Yes.
And that they didn't really give more. And I think through your efforts, there is now more that's available because you have advocated for it, because you push the envelope there.
Yes. Yes. I have to say, in our school district, Jessie probably got the most and the best of everything. And it was never enough for me. I will not lie. I would never think that it was enough, because every year she changed, things changed, people changed, and she aged every year, so there were more expectations for her. The big struggle was, an IEP postponed for a month. For me, that was 30 days. Everybody might say 1 month, but that is a huge gap in grading period as well, because we're grading, every 9 weeks. And so for time for me, when everybody else I felt saw time as we'll get to it, it was urgent. It was always urgent. I think that the schools did the best job that they could have done, and they offered her the best options that they had. I do not feel, and still do not feel, that they were ever prepared enough for Jessie, or there's still enough preparation for children like Jessie. And that is not that it's not a willingness to do it. It's knowing what to do, having a team buy-in what to do. It has to be something of more of a systematic change. In our district, I was fortunate to have very good connections. I maintain those connections to this day. But I learned from those how to ask, what to ask, and when to ask for things. And also, being grateful for what I was given. I think, unfortunately, at least in our state, the things that I advocated for when Jessie was 6 years old are the same things some of the families that I'm working with are advocating for today. which is unfortunate that we shouldn't have to be asking for the same things. And I think there's not that shift yet. And I think because there's
What is the shift? The shift is that it's just an assumption that the everything will be given that could be given. Do you think that advocacy is necessary in getting everything that a school district has for a special needs child?
I think absolutely advocacy is essential for the district. I think that where the shift needs to happen is that the school districts need um, to be aware that professional development is part of that. And professional development, personal development goes hand in hand. I think Jessie did as much as she could at school based on the people who were teaching her. She could not have learned anything more than they knew. And so, as you know, I don't think that ever there are bad people. I mean, I really think there were good people, but I think had they known a little bit more, she would have gotten a little bit more. And those are the things that I didn't have control of. I couldn't have say that I don't want that person for Jessie because she doesn't know everything. I want this person for Jessie because there's a system within the system that runs on its own cycle, and I had no control of that. So that when that serenity prayer came in really handy for me. But it's that shift need to be made. One, the professionals need to recognize that I need to know more to do more. I have to be willing to want to do more. And then the school has to be willing to say, our teachers need more. They need more. We need to give them this to be more, to do better for the schools. And like the school that you're working with, Scarlett, in was it Spalding?
Spalding Academy in New Hampshire.
Yeah. I mean, the results are incredible. And I think it's an inside out process, and you know, where they're changing staff from within.
Well, they're providing for their staff
absolutely
personal development
absolutely
themselves so that they can show up with their best foot forward, regardless of what is going on in their life for their students. And I think that that's something that hasn't been available in schools. And, you know, it's more, I mean, I hear from educators that the professional development is more about new regulations and less about personal development for themselves, because, you know, this is a hard job. And I don't think we have enough respect for the level of difficulty that educators have. I think the traditional thought is like, oh, they get their summers off and they have short days. And the reality is that, you know, everything that's going on in a home, a lot of what's going on in society, and especially now with social media and the fears and comparisons and depression and mental health issues and familial issues, abuse, neglect, all of this walks in on these two little feet into the classroom. And as I tell teachers, we give you our most precious asset for the majority of the day and ask you to help shape and mold them. Well, you have to have strong, healthy individuals that can manage their own state, because they have their own lives and their own issues that they're dealing with as well, in order to take on all of these individuals. Can you imagine being a teacher and having to manage all of that? And so I think it's so important and we see in the schools that understand that these incredible outcomes with not just their staff and the longevity of the staff being there and the happiness level, and the satisfaction with their jobs, but also the academic performance and attendance and less behavioral issues in the kids. But it just makes sense. But I think there's always been this mentality of lack in schools. We don't have enough time. We don't have enough money. We don't have enough resources. And so people are led with that lack rather than leading with abundance that only comes from within, because it's an attitude. And you have to cultivate that attitude. You have to know how, and you can have it regardless of what your situation or circumstances are currently. And so, you know, you had said something, I have a couple of questions. You said just got the best of what that school offered. And that was because of your advocacy.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. And of course, and by the way, it is so important to know how to advocate, because I know as a parent, I think about my own advocacy, and there was a lot of fear. There was, and of course, we know that anger and resentment and frustration are a mask for fear. And I know that I had that, um, a very defensive stance. It was like two elements standing in opposition of one another. And that is out of fear. And of course, what we want to do is move towards collaboration where both are working together in the best interest of the child. That's exactly what's supposed to happen. So then you have these inadequacies on both sides that get in the way of providing for that child. And so I know I'm stating the obvious, but I'm learning here too. And I'm thinking back on my own experience and how I could have benefited from this. In the end, by the way, my story is that I did not receive the the benefits that, I was told should have resulted because of the testing and the outcomes of the testing. I just was flat out denied. So I had to go out and get them on my own, put them on a credit card. I had friends help me drive because I was a single parent. I had to be at work.
Mhm.
I had friends driving, to and from, and then having a credit card to pay off, that I would pay off with my tax return, or at least a portion of it. That's
Yes.
how I lived. And I know I know a lot of parents that are listening are going to resonate with that. And I think that if I had known how to advocate,
Yeah.
if I had had a little bit more knowledge myself, I would have had a better outcome.
Yeah. And I think coming back to the full circle of parents taking the time to do self-care and recognize where they are in the advocacy realm of things. Because, going out and saying, I'm going to become a better advocate is great preparation for, the next level of saying, okay, who do I need to be a better advocate? What do I need to do? What do I need to learn? How do I need to go about this? Because just switching from I want to be a different advocate or better advocate doesn't automatically make that happen. They're habits that we have had, and I will tell you, they do not go away very easily. A quick example: I have a new childcare provider right here, right now. I should stop saying childcare because she's an adult, but I last week she was here and there were a couple of questions she was asking me, and I feel like I have said these things over and over and over and over and over again because there are so many people have walked through our lives. And she works with Jessie at a different capacity, but she was helping me on a different level of care that I needed that day. And it just like literally dawned on me, like I have never, like she's worked with Jess on this area, but I needed to prepare her for all of these things, which I failed to do. And she was asking these questions, and I'm like, oh my God, there are so many questions that I didn't answer. So I think being conscious of that and not being upset. Like I would say, oh my God, seriously, you should know that already.
Right.
And then really recognizing, wait, I need to just have her here one day when I am doing a routine that she sees how that routine will flow so she can model that routine so we can be consistent. And instead of saying, oh, she needs to go for lunch and then read one page of this book and then she needs to have a shower and blah, 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 and Jessie is very, very particular, of her pajamas, her nail polish, and her headband, and all of these things that if someone didn't know what were the things that would make her happy or how to communicate that to her or ask her the things that she needs is different. For example, this morning she's out with this caregiver, and she was up all night. So, I wrote her a list. She had already brushed her teeth. She had her shower. She needs to read. She was waiting for the sitter to come here. We talked about where does she want to go for breakfast. She picked where she wanted to go. Then we talked about what do you want to have for breakfast. And then she circled the one that she wanted. So it's a very detailed list so that caregiver can go, oh, you said you wanted to go to Panera and this is what you said you wanted here. So that is what we're going to get, unless you pick something else in this list. But, it's preparation all the time. But if I know that, and for me, it's automatic, but not taking the time to prepare someone, it's difficult. So teachers have, like you said, have so many responsibility for so many children. And if we don't make that as simple as possible for them, like I had a home to school communication every day, and it was exactly information taken from the IEP with a little bit of extra things that I needed to know. Did she eat and how much, and did she go to the restroom and so on. But it was just a checklist, and once they had done it enough, then it became automatic, so they could answer those questions, and it was easy. So trying to figure out how can I get the information that I need, give them the information they need, so we can both work to help Jessie to be the best person she can be, in the simplest way, so that it doesn't become overwhelming. Because I cannot imagine, as a parent, sometimes it's hard to just read an IEP, digest it, and think about all of the things that's going to happen at that IEP meeting. I have one kid with an IEP meeting, and some teachers have a classroom full of students with IEPs. So, I think the more aware and conscious we are about what our children's needs are, and compassionate to the fact that the other people who are working with our kids are having the same kind of concerns, it makes it easier. It doesn't make it absolutely super simple, but it's easier for all of us to approach how we interact with Jessie for the best outcome.
It's so interesting because as you're talking, I'm looking at this formula and I'm thinking how it aligns perfectly with what you're saying. The courage to show up with your best foot forward, being grateful for the curiosity and the questions instead of annoyed. It's so easy to slip into annoyance and frustration, but that puts up a wall in communication. The forgiveness for mistakes, because everybody is going to make them and nobody's perfect. And then the ability to step outside of whatever you've got going in your life to serve, to help other people, but then also that self-care, that compassion for yourself, putting on your oxygen mask first for yourself. Often as service providers, educators, parents, we don't remember to do that. And therefore we're depleted and we can't be our best self. So that's so important. So I have a question. You gave these workshops for parents, but do you do that for educators as well?
Yes. Actually, most of my workshops tend to be for educators.
Okay.
Yeah, because I think that educators really need to hear parents' perspective as well, because many of the educators may not have children with special needs. They may have children but not special needs. But sometimes by hearing stories about what it felt like to be a parent and what are the thoughts that are going through my mind when a teacher suggested an activity, and how I approached that discussion, and what I learned from that discussion, and giving them ideas of how they can think about and approach things very differently. I think one of the things that when I think of forgiveness, as I'm looking at the pillars right now, because I actually was really paying attention to that, I was choose love. So it's the forgiveness piece is super, super important, because one of the things that one of the things that we teach Jess, or we teach ourselves to do around Jess, is talk out loud, because she's very quiet unless she's screaming for something. Like, you can't ignore her. But one of the things that we do often is talk out loud about what we're doing and how it's going, and when we make a mess, and talk about that, so that she's engaging in what we're doing. And I could see so many things are outcome in her life is actually that she's learned from talk out loud, right? And so I have developed that habit that I do talk out loud quite a bit by myself, and sometimes I will hear myself say things like, why would they do that? How are they getting there? And thinking about, I'm talking about everybody else outside of my life who I have no control over. And then I would say, you know, what do you think, Jess? And I was like, I don't understand it, Jess. Okay. So we don't understand them and they don't understand us. So we need to figure out a way. Because, and I'm telling you, Scarlett, Jess it's the person who's always bringing me back to the life of what I need to do in the best way I need to do it. Because once I was saying out loud, I had to have a constructive way of thinking and guiding my thoughts. Otherwise, I will be a very different person in front of Jess. And don't get me wrong, I'm never perfect by any means. I have my crazy moments when I call my friend. I'm like, I can't believe this. Can you believe this? They did that. And of course, by the end of that conversation, I'm like, I just need to get a grip and start all over again. So it's not ever easy, just to dismiss those things, but choose love is a guiding principle to all of this. 100%. I think, and that is what attracted me so much. Like, I mean, thank you for courage and thank you for being grateful and thank you that I'm able to forgive and be forgiven, because God knows if school, I actually might reach out to many of the teachers one of these days and beg for forgiveness. I was told though that I think they understood my passion for Jess in the long run. Like, there was a passion about what I wanted for her. And I hope it showed up that way and not as aggression. In my mind, when I've learned to be a more mellow advocate, it was very aggressive, no doubt.
Well, I think a lot of parents understand where that aggression comes from. I think the same for me. And I think being able to manage that and to move back towards choosing love, because choosing love is collaborating. You're both on the same page with the same goals, and you both have the focus on the child and not yourself. That aggressiveness is more towards more your own issues coming out of inability to manage your own emotions. And of course, if you come to the table with aggression, you're going to be met with that. It's a level of energy that's going to be matched for probably most likely. And it's just so important. So can you talk about, you said something that was really awesome. PD, professional development, and personal development go hand in hand. And I love that. I think that that's so important. I think that concept can revolutionize education, and especially education for special needs, if we would really put that into place. That's beautiful. Professional development and personal development going hand in hand. So can you talk a little bit? I mean, I'm so excited that we're going to be working more closely together. We're going to be expanding our professional development into what we give is really a mix of professional development and personal development all at once. That's what makes Choose Love unique. But I'm so excited to expand with you, Pam, our professional development offerings, because, as we know, the diagnosis of autism is skyrocketing.
Yes.
And all over the world at unprecedented rates, quicker than we thought. We were told that it was going to. And so the necessity, and I also did a podcast on FASD, fetal alcohol syndrome. That has also skyrocketed. You've got 1 in 20 children. So you've got one child in your classroom that has that. And now, a lot of classrooms are getting equipped to manage special needs, but we've got to equip the educators to manage these additional stressors in their lives that they add up. Just having a classroom with 20 kids is one thing, but then when you add special needs, you really have to take care of the teachers. And basically that's what we're talking about. So can you talk a little bit about the self-care piece, Pam, and how you approach that and a little of the focus there?
Absolutely. I'm very passionate about this because I think my my driving force in this, it has had to start with when I started to reflect on myself and what I'm doing and what I needed to do next. And I think I did not understand self-care as I do now. You know, self-care to me was being selfish. And now I realize that selfish is a great thing, because we need to take time for ourselves and, to just listen to our own thoughts and plan our day and all of these things.
And it's hard when you have a special needs child.
It is. Everything becomes much more difficult when you have a special needs child, 100%. And I will tell you, I've done this workshop many times. It's a self-care workshop, and it's the one thing that people always write to me about or give me feedback later at other events. And it's about a self-care ritual that I had adopted, and it's brushing your teeth.
Ooh.
I realized that I was running around in the mornings. I was learning about self-care, and of course, my story to myself is that I don't have time. You know, there's this to do and that to do, and I just don't know how people will do that. Like, whoever came up with this idea was really, they had nothing to do, obviously. So I said, okay, where can you blend self-care into your life with something that you already do, and what is something that will only take a couple of minutes? So I'm driving and I'm thinking, what do I do in my day and what takes only 2 minutes? And I got to toothbrushing, and I'm like, toothbrushing takes me a lot longer than that, because I'm running around the house, picking up laundry, throwing in laundry, putting away stuff, all of these things, cleaning my counter. So I'm brushing my teeth and doing all of these things. And I'm like, what if I stop to just brush my teeth and do it for 2 minutes? I did not know that they had timers on toothbrush. That this was many years ago. So I got one of those timers that Jessie used in her activities, and it was a 2-minute timer. So I flipped the timer and I started brushing my teeth, and I was like, oh my God, is this gonna ever be done? And my mind is thinking about everything that I had to do and what a waste of time this was, and how am I gonna ever do this? And oh, I need to do
2
that.
minutes. 2 minutes.
Yeah, 2 minutes. And my head is, it's too much. 2 minutes is way, like, it's torture for me to stay in one place for 2 minutes. So I thought, okay, 2 minutes, let's practice this. So what I started to do is close my eyes. So I'm not seeing anything that needs to be done. And then that was too much. So then I started writing little quotes and pasting it on my mirror. And then I started adding more. And then I would tell myself to, not because I knew what it said, like courage, gratitude, forgiveness, compassion. I can glance at that and know what it says, but to actually say the words out in my head. So I'm brushing my teeth. And then eventually what I found, Scarlett, is that I was adding more things, and I needed more time to brush my teeth, because this was now an enjoyable task.
Ooh.
So it was not just brushing my teeth, but I was immersed in positive things, and I'm thinking about, just things outside of myself, but things that were benefiting me on the inside, right? And I started flipping the timer yet again, so I'm having a 4-minute toothbrushing moment, because it just became an enjoyable task. But that whole trial period, I am not kidding you, it took me about 2 months to stick to it, to be really good, to do something consistently for myself into only 2 minutes.
And your teeth are very white, I might add.
That's for it. I'm not thought about that. I just had my coffee. Yeah, but so the 2 minutes technique is the one thing that I have worked with parents on, and like it seems like, like, really, that's what we're gonna do for self-care? I'm like, yeah. That's where we can start. That's where I started. You can pick what will work for you, but that is a great place to start. So a few years ago, I was doing a presentation at this huge conference, and the table next to me had these time timers. And in my presentation, I said, the booth next to my booth has these time timers, and everybody from the session went and got the time timers. It was great. So, but I also knew that the message was heard. That was a great indication that people listened to that part. And many people said, ask parents about these. They're professionals thing. I've asked parents about this, can you take 2 minutes for yourself? Like, encourage you to do 2 minutes of anything for yourself, maybe sit in the car, do something. When I started to do self-care, I also realized that I needed to really be also conscious of when I'm spending time with my kids, and especially Alec, who was going through everything that I was going through and everything Jesse was going through. And the one thing that I started to do, like very in a box kind of practiced way, is I would have lunch with him once a week. And that was probably in my car, peanut butter and jelly sandwich or something from McDonald's, but it had to be small, doable, and consistent. So just little things. So for me, what I would do for Jesse, what I would do for Alec, and nothing could take more than like 10 minutes, because that's all I had to give. And if 2 minutes took me 6 months to learn, you can imagine what 30 minutes took, but it was.
We're all resonating with you, Pam. We're all resonating with you. Of course, I always say the best way to live your life without regret is to be present with the ones that you love, really present. And when you feel yourself so distracted and running around, if you can't focus for 2 minutes while you're brushing your teeth, you need that mindfulness practice so that you can really be present, because those are the precious times in your life. That's the dash in between your birth and your death, those present moments, those experiences with your kids. And that's all they want.
Yes.
They don't want toys. I mean, they may want toys, they may want sweets, but time is what is so precious. That is the most valuable gift that you can give and receive. And taking that time for yourself is so important. Absolutely. I love that, Pam. I could talk to you forever, and we're obviously going to have to do this again, but also everybody listening, be looking for more from Pam, more offerings through Choose Love, and, sign up, because this is really important stuff. Educators, tell your schools about it, and let's just get this going, because it is so important. Pam already has her own business and she's doing this, but I want to introduce this to all of our Choose Love community, because one, I love you, and as a person and a human being and a fellow light worker, and two, I know what you have to offer is so valuable, and I'm just so grateful, Pam, for you, for our friendship, and for what you bring to the world. And thank you. I know that my audience is thanking you as well. And thanks for choosing love, everybody. This is I just got a new license plate, and it's one of the personalized ones, and you got all these different you had 3 different choices that you could make, and I don't even remember choosing this one. It's basically, in hindsight, it says chose love, and I thought, oh, wait a minute, that's what we're choose love. It's in the present tense. But then I thought, you know what, this is a great reminder that I may have chosen love, but I have a brand new opportunity today and all day long to choose it again. That was the past. Life moves on. This is the present, and this is the most powerful response, choosing love as a thoughtful response, growing through difficulty. That's what we've talked about today. Thank you, Pam, so much for sharing your story and your children and your struggles, and most importantly, all that you've learned with us. And we look forward to hearing more from you in the future. Thank you for choosing love.
Thank you.
Hey, hey, oh. It's all part of us. We can all choose love. It'll lift you up if you let it in. Let the healing